Mom was depressed, I learned later. She's very technical now. She says, I wasn't depressed, I was sad. I was grieving. And she explains that she knew that his drinking was causing him physical harm. He had had one heart attack 5 years before he died. So a second was going to be very likely if he continued drinking, which is what the doctor told him. In fact, I'm not sure I relay in my book anymore that the doctor who took care of my father learned that my mother had stopped paying my father's life insurance. I don't know how he learned that, but in some passing conversation with my mother, and insisted that she do so. Insisted so much that she finally felt compelled to pick up the policy again and continue paying it. It was quite helpful. It at least permitted us to bury him. It wasn't a huge policy. It was a couple of $1,000s, but in those times, it was a lot of money. It's what helped us move from the project to Co-op City, which was out of the projects to a private apartment complex in the upper part of the Bronx. But my mother says that you can understand the inevitable, but coming to the reality was a different thing for her. Realizing that he was now dead and how special a time they had had in the beginning of their romance made her grieve deeply. And I called it depression in an unsophisticated way. I think she's right. She was probably just grieving. But we would come home from school in the afternoon. She would have dinner prepared for us, and she would go back into her room and cry all night. And you're right. About a year later, I let it go on. I'm sounding like I'm some god or something. But my brother and I had been quietly sitting in the house watching television or reading books. Books was my favorite pastime. And I just had enough one day. She locked herself back in the room, and I started to cry, and I went up to the door and started banging on it. And I was screaming at her, you gotta stop this. You're dying on us, and you're gonna leave us alone. We don't deserve to be left alone. Please, please stop. And I finally just ran away from the door when she didn't open it. And I didn't know at that moment what my impact was. I actually fell asleep that night crying. But the next morning, my mother woke us up, and she says she doesn't remember this dress, but it was a black with white polka dot dress. And her hair was finally properly combed. She had, for the first time in a year, some makeup on. And I knew my mom was back. And that may have been one of the happiest moments of my life.